let me know when we're good and I will get started. So welcome to today's discussion. We'll start in just a moment. All right. I think we are live. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. And welcome to the 2021 Engineers Week Industry and Career Panel. Today's STEM panel is sponsored by the Aerospace Corporation and the STEM Coalition, and this is part of an overall national DiscoverE Engineers Week. So again, we welcome you. Thank you for joining us, and we do appreciate your participation today. We will have two panel discussions during today's online event. We'll have an industry career panel first, and then a college and recent graduate panel following that right after, followed by a chance for some questions and answers, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. So I am Lane Gilchrist. I'm the president of the nonprofit organization, the STEM Coalition, and I am also a systems engineer with the Small Business Alpha Omega Group, providing support to the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force, and now the U.S. Space Force as well, providing engineering services to all of them. I'm a former Air Force officer with a lot of experience in the space industry and in satellite operations and working with satellites. And I will also function as your MC today for this event and facilitator for the panels. Before we begin, I want to take just a few moments to talk about a few announcements. So hopefully you've had a few minutes to start to familiarize yourself with the online platform. I think most people are used to Zoom by this point, so a lot of it should be somewhat familiar. Please use the chat function to ask questions during the panels, and we will be answering as many of those questions as we can after we have the presentations from the panels. So keep those questions in mind, and we'll be asking as many as we can before we reach the end of our time. We encourage a lot of questions for the panelists. They're here for you to learn from today. Also, feel free to contact us after the event if you have any further questions, and you can use our email, and we'll have this up at the end as well, I believe. It's stemcoalition2018@gmail.com. That's stemcoalition2018@gmail.com. If you ask those questions, we'll answer them as quickly as we can and get you to the right folks. And I know we've got the email listed in the chat room as well, if you want to get it from there. This year, the Engineers Week theme is Imagining Tomorrow, and our panelists will talk about their backgrounds and their visions for the future. So we encourage you to ask them lots of questions, and you can learn how to achieve your goals and also build a better tomorrow. So before we start our discussions, we have a brief interactive activity for everybody. So please participate if you don't mind. So what you see on the slide here, we want to know how you're imagining tomorrow. So that's the question you're going to answer. And to answer that question, we ask you to simply scan this QR code that you see in front of you on the screen, or go to slido.com and you can enter the code #65220. And in one word, just tell us what you see as you imagine tomorrow, how you imagine it. So we'll take just a moment and you can enter those in. And as those come in, I'll read off some of the answers and you're going to see something develop here really quickly. So my answer would be innovation. I want to see lots of innovation. And I think we'll talk about that. But seeing some great words pop up: hope, space, equality. That's great. Bright, technology, change. Lots of good ones. Diversity, that's a really great one. You'll see some of that today. Potential. Peace, always using our things. I like flying cars. I like that too. For those of us that live in Los Angeles, flying cars would be a wonderful thing as more people start to get back out. These are all great answers. We'll give it just a moment. I think if there are a few more to pop up, and we're almost there. Thanks for participating in this. This is great to see what you all imagine. Robotics, I see that in here as well. So some of the things you put in here, you can ask questions about to our panelists too. Forward thinking, spaceships, great. Space, awesome. All right. So here in just a moment, we're going to go back into our presentation, and we're going to kick off with our career panel discussions here in just a minute. And to lead us into that, we do have a special speaker today that I'll be introducing. So our first speaker is Miss Laura Woodside, and she is the Senior Vice President for Education Products for Cricket Media. And she's a teacher at heart, as you see listed here. I love that. So please welcome Miss Woodside, and I'm going to turn it over to you to share a few thoughts with us as we kick everything off.
Thank you so much, Lane. It's such a pleasure to be able to speak to this group today about imagining tomorrow and inspiring the future. And I think if we're having this conversation, a place that we have to start is talking about the state of STEM. And when I say talking about the state of STEM, I say looking at what are the jobs, where are our students currently, and how are we looking in terms of diversity? So let's jump right in and take a quick peek at those three things. So first, STEM jobs. What are we seeing? We're seeing that jobs in this field are on the rise and that they pay well. We know that STEM jobs are projected to grow 13% by the year 2027. In comparison, non-STEM jobs are only expected to grow about 9%. At the same time, we see the median annual wage of STEM occupations is double that of non-STEM occupations. So that is good news. Plenty of jobs, an increasing number of STEM jobs, and the pay is terrific. So then we look at the other side, and what we see is that unfortunately, today's students, who are the workforce of tomorrow, are losing interest in pursuing STEM. And we look at this data, it should be alarming to us. What we're seeing is that by middle school, over half of students are making that decision that they're not interested in pursuing a STEM career. And even more alarming when we look at those gaps in diversity. When we look at our undergraduates coming out of college, what we're seeing is that only 30% of folks getting STEM degrees and finishing STEM degrees are women and people of color. So it's clear that we need to do something about it. And it's critical that all children, regardless of their zip code, have access to STEM careers and have a pathway to build the confidence and the skills they need so that this workforce pipeline can be robust and can be diverse. So let's talk about how we solve this problem now into some of the exciting stuff. So I think one thing that we're finding is that STEM intervention is needed at an earlier age. If we think about where the majority of STEM programs are, especially those that engage STEM professionals, we're seeing them at the collegiate level, the high school level, they're getting into middle school, but programs that truly have STEM professionals involved are rarely found in elementary schools. And what we know, what we just saw in that data is that's when kids are making these decisions. They're forming their self-concept, they're thinking about who am I and what can or can't I be when I grow up. And so we need to make sure that that STEM education that involves STEM professionals is getting down into our elementary schools in particular. Particularly in underserved communities, what we're seeing is that kids are lacking the role models that they need. They do not have STEM professionals in their sphere of influence, so it's very hard for them to see the relevance of what they're learning in school unless they have these opportunities. So how do we bring these opportunities to them? One of my most heartbreaking statements, but also true statements, is that it's disheartening when we realize that potential is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. So how do we equalize the playing field? I want to tell you about a program that is making a difference. You see the logo at the bottom of the screen there, TryEngineering Together, and are changing the game by connecting STEM professionals across our country with kids in elementary school classrooms, particularly in underserved communities, focusing on those Title I schools. For a year long, back and forth asynchronous exchange around STEM content and hands-on STEM activities. And the results and the impact that we're seeing from these STEM professionals who are giving less than 20 minutes a week when they can through any device to mentor a young child are profound. Look at this data on your screen. We're finding out that these kids, and this is data based on Title I kids after an academic year of having a STEM mentor, 71% of these kids said they were highly confident in their ability to learn anything in the field of engineering. 50% said absolutely they were going to pursue a STEM career. 91% said they liked or really liked engineering. And then there were these other benefits that we saw. Since they were corresponding asynchronously with their e-mentors, they also improved in how they saw themselves as writers. And we know that that communication, written communication, is another key skill for success. And then we also know social emotional aspects are so important to students' growth, regardless of field. And 100% of these 400 Title I students said that they knew that their STEM mentor, the STEM professional, cared about them and helped them feel good about themselves. So as we jump into this conversation today about really imagining tomorrow and inspiring the future, I want us to make sure that our thoughts are also with our youngest friends in elementary school who truly are the workforce of tomorrow. And a thank you, I'll give a shout out to the Aerospace Corporation who are serving as mentors in this TryEngineering Together program right now and really are making an impact across the country. So thank you, Lane.
Thank you, Ms. Woodside. Thank you for those informative and inspiring words. Really appreciate that. Some great thoughts there as we jump into these career panels. And we look forward to doing more with you in the future and with TryEngineering Together as well. And we'll be talking for sure. So we're now ready for our first panel. And this will be the career industry panel with our panelists that are experts in their fields and have been working in engineering jobs for a number of years at this point. So we have assembled a nice little panel here, and you're going to get to hear from each panelist first. I'll provide a little bit of background and we'll have some questions for them. And as a reminder, please put your questions in the chat, and we'll be collecting those to ask at the end of both panels. So we'll get started. Our first panelist is Dr. Alvin Smith, and Dr. Smith is a Jet Propulsion Laboratory Backward Planetary Protection Lead for the Mars Sample Return, and he's a manager for JPL's Planetary Protection Center of Excellence. In these roles, he provides scientific oversight to research and development projects and make sure that they meet their engineering requirements for planetary protection, as well as doing program management for training programs, university outreach, and interagency collaborations. His contributions have been instrumental in planning flight implementation for Mars 2020 and the Perseverance rover that we just saw land this week. Hopefully everybody got to see that. He's also worked with Europa Clipper and the Mars Sample Return campaign that you probably heard a little bit about this week as well if you've been watching everything going on with the Mars rover. Dr. Smith, please take a moment and tell us more about yourself and your background and what got you interested in STEM.
Good evening and afternoon. Thank you, Lane, for that great introduction. Absolutely stoked to be here. Really, STEM and outreach is truly a passion of mine. So I'm originally from the other coast, the other sunshine state, Florida, Miami, Florida, where I really got my start in elementary school and also in thinking about how I wanted to make the biggest impact in STEM and science. And these were the things that really got me thinking about exploring the world around me. What were the cool things in my backyard, right? The bugs and the birds and all of those crazy things there. And really thinking how to integrate that into my life. I remember back when I actually went to space camp as well. So space was always near and dear to my heart. I would look up at the stars, and that would be really the stepping point, at least for beginning the cultivation of really that scientific spirit. However, just as we've heard in the previous presentation, I really didn't have engineers or anyone from NASA in my world, in my sphere. I relied on, again, a strong network of parents and pastors and teachers that were really the influences in my life that showed me really how to, one, be a better person, and how to also be responsible as well, right? So those were the things in my life that I really kind of keyed into. As I went to college, and I went to college in Alabama for my undergraduate at Talladega College and HBCU, the oldest in in Alabama. And then following that, I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C. And those were the formative years where it really cultivated that spirit again. And I really, hats off to Talladega and Howard both for really being that community that I could lean on to really help push me forward, right? So after that, I actually wound up in DC for a very long time, for about 16 or 17 years, where in my mind, the only thing that I saw of professionals in biology or science, even up and through my postdoc, were really focused on medicine. And so a lot of the work that I did very early on in my career and even mid-career, we're focused on medicine, biology, vaccine development. I worked for the DoD. I did a lot of those great things that I just saw and I really love to do. I really wanted to make that difference. And so for me, I was actually living a great life in DC. I had no thoughts of moving to California. However, there was still that hankering or that inkling. Something was going on about space, and I really wanted to pursue that. So one day I said, you know, I'm really tired of the middle management of consulting and the Beltway bandit there in DC. And I said, I really wanted to do something different. So I did a Google search and serendipitously found the career of my dreams, which was here at JPL. I put in the two things in the search engine that really mattered to me, and it was microbiology and space. And that led me to JPL and the planetary protection discipline. After that point, I realized that for literally 17 or 20 years, I was doing what I could do with my career. After being at JPL in only for just a little over 3 years, I've found that I'm doing what I feel I'm supposed to be doing. And so that is an absolute joy. I wake up every morning thankful for exactly the things that I get to do and speak to kids and students around the world. So thank you so very much for all of this. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about my background and what really got me interested in STEM.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. I appreciate those nice, inspiring words, especially on your passion. Really appreciate that and sharing that with us. And we'll have some questions here in a little while. Next, I do want to move on to our next panelist, Miss Elena Viscara. Miss Viscara is a senior project and engineer with the GPS-3 Navigation, Payload, and System Integration Department. And she's currently technical lead supporting the United States Space Force's GPS satellite acquisition contract, doing a lot of work in GPS. And she's specifically working in the area of launching GPS satellites and getting them into their final orbit in medium Earth orbit, which is about 12,000 miles or so from the Earth. She and her team are technical experts, and they're ready to troubleshoot any anomalies or problems that happen on orbit. And they help make sure that the satellites can complete their missions for many years to come while they're up in orbit. Ms. Viscara, please give a little background on yourself and what led you to pursue engineering as a career choice.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak on this panel. I'm truly, truly honored. Everyone that's on this panel with me is so impressive and wonderful. I couldn't be prouder to be among them. And I also want to just take a moment to give an extra special kudos to Alvin Smith and his team. Dr. Smith, that's amazing work that you did, inspiring the country and the world. And so thank you so much for that. That's just proof of what, when you get engineers in a room with plenty of pizza, what they can do. So thumbs up, double thumbs up. I think like every single engineer that I've ever met, every engineer's origin story starts with a teacher. It starts with a teacher, a mentor, And it could be anywhere from elementary school until college, but it's always a teacher. And same with me, my seed was planted in high school. I took an engineering class in high school. I met the professor, and he was energetic and smart. And that's instantly what I wanted to do with my life. At that moment, I became an engineer in training. And so when it came time to look for universities to go to for college, I chose a university that had an amazing engineering program, but I stumbled into a pothole when I chose a school that was too far away from my social safety net. I wasn't able to continue at that school. I was just too far away from my family and my source of funds. And so I had to transfer schools that was a little bit closer to home and a little bit more in my price range. I will admit that that setback almost was too far. I almost did give up, but with my family's support, I got back on the horse, re-enrolled in school, and didn't drop my engineering degree, kept focusing on engineering, got my degree. A degree is a degree. And so I can now say I'm a proud engineer, and it's made the world of difference. I have had the wonderful opportunity to be on console for 5 GPS launches, where I've been the lead of amazingly brilliant experts in their field. And our team has launched those satellites, been agile, adapted to any issue that's ever come up. And all of you are getting the benefits of those GPS satellites. Whenever you're driving in your car or going on your hikes, it's our work that helped get you there. So pursuing engineering as a career has been just an amazing advantage. And don't give up no matter what. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Viscara. Thanks for sharing that, especially on your path to how you got into your career. And then just a plug for you, everybody. You have a GPS expert, no kidding, expert on GPS on here today. So ask her questions about GPS if you have any. She's here. Let's move on to our third panelist. And I'm fortunate, I actually get to work with this panelist every so often. We work in the same section on Los Angeles Air Force Base. She is a digital engineering program manager and a digital engineering expert at this point, doing all kinds of great things with digital transformation for the Air Force and the US Space Force to transform us onto doing everything we do in a digital format rather than printing paper and doing things kind of an old-fashioned way at this point. She has also worked with advanced extremely high-frequency satellites. Those are a special kind of communication satellite for the military. And she's worked with live, virtual, and constructive simulation training as well for those satellite systems. Ms. Palmer, please provide us a little bit of background on yourself and tell us how you're imagining tomorrow as well.
Thanks, Lane. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Palmer. I'm a lead engineer and program manager for the United States Space Force. I've wanted to be an engineer ever since I watched Star Wars as a kid, and I became obsessed with robotics. So I went and got a degree in mechanical engineering at the University of Central Florida and a master's degree in modeling and sim. I started my career out with the military with the Department of Defense right out of college when the Army picked me up. And I worked with the Program Executive Office for Simulation Training and Instrumentation out of Orlando, Florida, where we build trainers, simulators. We worked in live, virtual, and constructive simulation, and we developed integrated simulation exercises for multiple military branches so that you could have, for example, you could have someone in a flight simulator communicating with someone in a tank simulator. Meanwhile, you have people doing a constructive simulation, doing like a SimCity version of a war game. After that, I moved on to Defense Contract Management Agency, where I spent a year as a government rep over at Northrop Grumman Space Park, which is down the street from where I work now. And I led the AHF program, which is what Lane mentioned earlier, the Advanced Extremely High Frequency Satellite Program. I also worked on non-conforming materials, reviewing different tags from F-18 and a bunch of other things that Northrop Grumman works on. Then I moved on to Space and Missile Systems Center, which is formerly Air Force, now Space Force. and I've been focusing on digital engineering and cloud environments. So how do I imagine tomorrow? I think we're going to be going digital. Everything's going digital, and that's kind of my focus right now is digital engineering. And I think that's really going to move us forward and take us away from a lot of antiquated engineering traditions. And I think it's going to help us be faster. It's going to make us more efficient. We're going to be able to cut cost and cut time off our projects, but still deliver really great products, if not better products than we're currently delivering. Thanks, Lane.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer. And I have to pick a plug because I see you always with Star Wars gear, and you're part of making Star Wars a reality for us with everything that you're doing. It's coming. Some of these things are real. So I think our fourth panelist, I'm not sure that she has been able to make it on, but we will come back to her at the end if she gets on before we wrap up everything. But Doctor, are you on?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Great. I missed if you were on. So let me introduce you real fast. So Dr. Shmeela, I'm going to say V9. I don't, some of these long names, it's easier to give you a title, V9 there.
I tell my students to just call me Dr. V. That's
Dr. V works as well, right? But she is an assistant professor with the Integrative Biology and Physiology and Life Science Core Education at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. She's a biotech expert and neuroscience expert. She's an electrical engineer, and she leads the Neural Dynamics group at UCLA. Her research in neuroscience is seeking to uncover the mysteries of brain computations by merging mathematical modeling and experimental methodologies. And I know from previous conversations with her, she's got a huge heart for STEM, and she's looking at how to treating the brain just like a machine, the machine that it is. And she strongly advocates teaching the application of math at all stages of learning. So Dr. V, please share a little more on your work and how you feel biology will play a role in the future of engineering.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here today. I really am appreciative of the efforts STEM Coalition team has been putting in outreach efforts. I'm really happy and honored to be here. My name is Sharmila Venugopal, and as Lane introduced, I'm a professor in life sciences at UCLA. I will address the question Lane asked in two parts. First, I'll tell you a bit about my work. I do both research and teaching. My research is in neuroscience, and the goal of my research is to understand how the brain performs complex computations that makes us walk, talk, eat, think, and act. So for this, you need to bring many disciplines together. So I use mathematical modeling, computational algorithms, and I also combine this with many experimental methodologies. Currently, we are studying how the brain computations are going wrong in neurodegenerative diseases. And we hope that the discoveries and the models that we build will contribute in the long run for effective diagnosis and treatment of these devastating conditions. With teaching, I'm heavily engaged in developing and teaching applicable math courses for life sciences students. So unlike traditional math classes, which often demotivate non-majors, our approach has helped undergraduate students to apply what they learn in the classroom directly in their research. Now, moving on to what role biology can play in the future of engineering. This is such a fantastic question. And I would like to highlight a couple major ways in which biology has indeed propelled engineering. First of all, biological systems are very complex. And understanding this complexity has led to pioneering many fields in engineering, such as bio-inspired computing, machine learning, artificial intelligence, biorobotics, to name a few. Another way biology can fuel engineering is also through development of innovative technology, right? In order to study biology at multiple scales, ranging from single molecule all the way to whole populations, we need state-of-the-art technological advancement. So that way, biology propels engineering as well. And even beyond basic science, biological health data is driving healthcare technology and telemedicine. So overall, my take on this is that biology and engineering are really good old friends, and they constantly help each other in each other's progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. V, for sharing your thoughts, especially on biotechnology and a whole different area to think about here. And I think you were teaching just a little while ago, so thank you for joining us and getting on to talk.
No problem. Thank you.
I do have a few questions for this panel, and then we'll move on to the next panel. And we'll have questions, just a reminder, from the audience and attendees at the end as well. But my first question, and I think I'm going to aim this one at Dr. Smith and Dr. V, but how do you handle failure? If you can just give a brief thought on that.
Who should go first? I'll go first.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, my only word for failure is perseverance. So you need to persevere. You need to correct your mistakes, because mistakes what causes failures a lot of the times. And also there could be external factors that you may not have taken into account. And I think addressing those and persevering is going to help you move forward. Once you persevere, new possibilities, new opportunities will open up, on their own. So that's my take.
That's actually a great segue into the Perseverance rover as well. So obviously at NASA, we look to fail. We look to fail early, and failure is all a part of how we build better hardware and really learn to do things a lot more innovative, shy away from. It's something that you can learn from. And I think everyone should be okay with, at JP, is that failure is it's not how you fail, it's how you bounce back. And I think that's what Dr. V was talking about.
Absolutely. I agree 100%, Dr. Smith.
Yes, I like that, especially that bounce back. In the military, my military time, when you do evaluations, there was always a little saying that there's those who have failed and those who will fail. It is a given in life. It's gonna happen, and you have to be resilient and recover. I like both your all's words there about correcting mistakes and learning from them. That's great. I do want to ask one more question to the panel as well, and I'm going to aim this at Ms. Viscara and Ms. Palmer with your backgrounds of why do you think the future of space is important?
You want to go ahead, Ms. Palmer?
Oh, okay, sure. So I think, it's really funny because when I first got this job, I didn't really know what this job was. They hadn't told me what the job was in the interview. And so when they finally met with who my boss was at the time, I asked him, I'm like, so what does this job entail? And he's like, the future is going to be space and war in space. So I was like, oh, Star Wars, here we go. But I think that's really where we're going. The future in terms of our national security and things like that, it's highly dependent on space. We have our satellites, our communications, all of that's in space. And I think a lot of that, I think a lot of people don't realize how much happens outside of our planet, essentially. And I think that's going to become more and more important as time goes by.
Completely agree. I really do truly think that the future of the nation, as well as the future of the world, is very focused on space and how we utilize our resources to get us into space, and then how we work together to find those innovations in space. There have been so many benefits that the world has received from our space program. Our astronauts have brought back so many useful things that have helped the world. And then there are so many military and civilian programs that are so impactful to our world and our way of life. GPS, for instance, is present in banking, in shipping, in just everybody navigating, as well as our allied forces and our military warfighter working together to help the nation. So I think that our focus on space is only going to bring about that innovation, bring about the future of where we're going in as a world. And I think that we're going to see just some wonderful new inventions come out with the space program that we're focused on.
Great comments, especially the application of space that we see around us all the time with GPS, especially, and then all the attention on the Mars rover this past week too, as what Dr. Smith is working with. So if you all don't mind, I want to ask this panel, please stay on the line with us all the way to the end. We're going to have some more questions at the end, but we're going to move on to the second panel at this point and be talking to them for just a few minutes. So thank you, industry career panel members. And as I mentioned, we'll ask some questions for you at the end as well. So our next panel is made up of college students and recent graduates. They are ready to share their experiences and thoughts on STEM careers with you as they're getting ready to embark on their STEM careers at this point. So our first panelist is Mr. Ebber Toscano. He's a STEM coalition member. He's part of my group, and he's a first-generation student studying aerospace engineering at Arizona State University. And he is the director of finance for El Concilio Coalition at ASU. And could you tell us a little bit about your experience growing up and a little bit of your background as well?
Of course, I'm happy to. So I am the first in my family to ever attend college, and I'm a sophomore majoring in, I like to say rocket science because it sounds much better to say rocket science, but it's aerospace engineering with a concentration in astro. I was actually born in El Paso. It's a little town in the Yeehaw state of Texas, and I actually lived a very normal childhood for the first few years, I would say the first 8 years, until one day I got home from school with sort of our belongings outside, and I was sort of naive, so I thought, are having a garage sale? You know, I wasn't sure what was going on. Sadly, no, we were actually getting kicked out of the house, and you know, after that, I didn't really feel sad at the moment because you know I had my family, and that's all that mattered to me. And while we were homeless, we were actually sleeping in a cold room in the back of a fitness studio. And we were lucky enough to find a home or a place to live in, but this was in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. So Ciudad Juarez is right across El Paso, so it's right crossing the border. And at that time, it was actually the most dangerous city in the world. And between those like three years, it was either #1 most dangerous or in the top 5. So it was a terrible place. And so because it was so terrible, I had to still attend elementary school in America. So with the mafia presence, it was very dangerous for me, for boys my age, to stay there. And so what I would do is that I would actually wake up at 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning, it was still very, very dark, and I never wanted to wake up. But then we would drive 4 hours to school every day, and that was absolutely exhausting. But I remember during the car ride, I wouldn't look outside of the window because of how dangerous it was. But I would lay in the back of the car and I would look up at the night sky. And I remember the first constellation I ever saw was Orion's constellation. And, you know, just looking at the stars for so long, I just thought, you know, like, wow, this sky, the night sky is absolutely mesmerizing. I wonder what else is out there. And so, you know, that propelled me to my passion for space, you know, asking myself, what else is out there? What do we not know about? And so to escape from my terrible reality, that's what I use to cope. Space, think about space, learn about space, and all the works. So then I started thinking, I started growing, I started maturing, and I thought, hey, how can I get myself and how can I get my family out of poverty? And how can I also help steer humanity into a better direction? So now I'm just waiting for the next best thing. And in terms of how I imagine tomorrow, as a kid, I remember that tomorrow was not promised to me as a kid. That was the sad truth. I didn't know if tomorrow was going to come. But now things have changed. I made it out. I'm here in America. I'm here in Arizona studying. I'm in college now. And so now I just see tomorrow as a new day to get closer to my dream and achieve what is impossible, or what seemed to be impossible for my family generations way before me. And I see it as just a step further to, I would call this a new space race with people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. this new space race is just a step forward to advancing humanity to the unimaginable.
Thank you, Ebber. The really good comments there. I really love that image of staring up at space that you shared and how that inspired you. Orion is my favorite constellation as well. And I love looking at that constellation this time of year. So I encourage if those that can get out and see the stars, go look at that constellation and be inspired. Our second panelist is Miss Ashley Carpenter. Ashley is a first-generation college student at UCLA studying astrophysics, and she was awarded the Dr. Wanda M. Austin Scholarship, a very prestigious scholarship with Aerospace Corporation, and has an internship with the Aerospace Corporation. She is doing great things and would love to have you introduce yourself for just a moment and tell us how you view the future of space as well.
Hi, it's so nice to meet all of you. My name is Ashley. I grew up in Hawthorne, California. I've lived my entire life with just me and my father. And for most of my life, starting in elementary school, we faced a lot of housing insecurity. And for about 8 years, my father and I went between staying with family friends, sleeping in our car, and even staying at like cheap motels. And at 16 years old, when I became old enough to work, I had to help my dad pay rent. And well, despite all of life's obstacles, something that kept me really grounded was school. No one in my family had attended college before, but I did know that I had to do well to make a better life for myself and for my family. But the desire to do well didn't just come from the need to better my financial situation. I've always had a love for space, and the idea of exploring the unknown was always something that like interested me and made me like really, really excited. When I took my first physics course in high school, everything finally clicked and I was like, that's what this is. And I felt like I knew what I wanted to pursue. But even though I felt like I knew what I wanted to do, there was still a lot of uncertainty between choosing what I wanted versus what I thought would make me most successful. Luckily, I am here in my second year at UCLA as the first in my family to attend college, and I'm really, really happy that I decided on astrophysics. How I imagine tomorrow, the future of space, I would honestly really love to see more people like me in STEM. It wasn't until very recently that I found out that less than 100 Black women were awarded PhDs in physics since 1973, which is such a low number. And even I think about 22 received PhDs in astronomy related fields. So I really want to get my PhD, and I would love to see other people like me also striving for higher education in STEM.
Thank you, Ashley. I really like that comment, that having more people like you in STEM, that's so important. And like we were saying yesterday, you're going to be a great inspiration, and you'll be a PhD one day. We have full confidence in you. And I'm seeing that in the chat too. People are cheering you on. You're going to do great and be a great inspiration and example to others. We really appreciate your comments. Our third panelist is Miss Manzar Chaudhry. Manzar works as a staffing specialist for the University Relations and Recruiting at the Aerospace Corporation. She is also a first-generation college student and graduated from the Jack Welch Management Institute at Strayer University with a Master of Business Administration with Welch Scholar Distinction, and also has a Bachelor of Arts in Government and International Politics from George Mason University. And I like that background because it shows us it's not just having an engineering degree that gets you involved in all these STEM things. And Manzar is doing this. It's important what she's doing and where her background contributes. So please introduce yourself, Manzar, and tell us how you've seen diversity change at Aerospace and how you're working to improve that in STEM careers as well.
Of course. Thanks, Lane. Hi, everyone. My name's Manzar. I'm so excited to be here today to tell you guys a little bit about my background and how I got into helping students like yourself in STEM. So I grew up in Northern Virginia with 2 immigrant parents, and from a very early age, I kind of knew the challenges that I would face would probably be different than my peers around me. You know, my parents had always stressed the importance of education and the opportunities it would bring me in life. So as a result of that, I knew as a first-generation college student, not only was I going to have to navigate how to apply and get in, but also how to pay for it myself, which was a pretty big hurdle in itself. But combining that with just an overall lack of resources within my school, as well as not being able to talk to my parents or my peers about it, made it even more stressful. In many ways, I kind of didn't want anyone to look down on me, because if I asked them questions, they would probably think, oh, she doesn't even know the basics of college. So in a way to overcome that, you know, I looked at several programs within my public school system that, you know, kind of were geared towards more individuals like me, first-generation college students. And I was able to find a great program within my public school that allowed me and provided me support to not only navigate college, but also help get scholarships to apply for colleges as well. So while I was in college, I worked part-time to support myself as I finished up my bachelor's degree in government and political science, with the complete intention of going to law school right after. However, as life would have it, as soon as I got accepted into law school, I actually ended up getting sick and having to reevaluate not just my life, but my goals as well. And in many ways, I felt like I was almost at a crossroads with myself. And one way I could kind of sulk that all my original goals didn't work out, or I could kind of move forward and find a new passion and goals. So, you know, I had my parents relying on me and my 2 younger siblings looking up to me as the first person to graduate college. So I decided to, you know, move forward. I would figure it out. And that's kind of what I did. I accepted an opportunity to work full time with students in higher education. And as I was doing that, my director actually offered me the chance to get my master's in business administration while the company paid for it through tuition assistance. And I almost considered that as my new goal. So I ended up working full time while going to school full time to complete my master's. And I finished my 2-year program in 18 months and actually graduated with a 4.0. And during my journey, I realized how much I enjoyed helping individuals like my younger siblings, both of which who are in STEM. My sister actually just graduated medical school, and my brother's finishing up his computer engineering degree. So while I was doing that, you know, I looked at different opportunities that would allow me to continue that passion after I graduated. And I actually found an amazing opportunity at Aerospace with their University Relations and Recruiting Department. So, you know, I joined, and, you know, this not only gave me the chance to continue to pursue my passion of helping individuals in STEM, but also allowing my education to help me build, you know, a growing department. And in my last 3 years at Aerospace, I would definitely say diversity has been evolving, not only in the company, but as in the industry as a whole. I think as a company, we've taken a lot of innovative strategies to not only recruit diverse talent, but also retain it through supporting K-12 STEM programs, recruiting at diversity conferences, as well as, you know, supporting colleges with, you know, student organizations. And I think one of the best ways, you know, the future and Aerospace can, you know, hire and recruit diverse talent is supporting the younger generations like yourself that have not only a diversified background, but diverse thought. And, you know, just like Ashley said, I definitely imagine a future that, you know, there's a lot more people like me, not only in STEM fields, knowing that they can overcome their struggles, but also, you know, willing to help others get there as well.
Thank you, Manzar. Appreciate those comments on overcoming resource challenges and using opportunities that you've had and starting to give back with your own siblings. I really like that. So I have a question for this panel, but then we'll move on to some of the other questions that we're starting to get in as well. And this question was submitted before the panels ever started, so I'm going to ask you guys each to chime in on this one just briefly, starting with Ebber. So when you wanted to quit, what kept you going?
Wow, I'm sure I can answer this in words, but I can also show you. So I can, if I reach a few centimeters, I actually have a picture of my family here. And these are just, it's me and my siblings, although I have total 8. I have a lot of siblings. But I'm usually with the rigorous courses that I have for engineering and having, well, at least no one in my family to help me and being the first one to ever do this. There's been a lot of times where I either like I failed the test or I've I thought about quitting, but I just look to my right and they're right there, and it's just a reminder. I got people looking up to me. I got little ones looking up to me, and I got a lot of pressure. But it's all it's all for the best, and I'm just trying to make not just my family or myself proud, but just everyone else around me. So all I need to find inspiration and is my family. That's what keeps me going.
Great family. I like that. Ashley, your thoughts on that? On what's when you wanted to quit, what kept you going?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say the thing that most like made me feel like I wanted to quit was not realizing that other people were struggling as well. So especially in college, there's a lot of like it can be hard sometimes, but knowing that there are other people who are also struggling and that you can still learn it, like no matter, you just have to try, and that's what keeps me going.
Great, thank you. And Manzar, your thoughts on when you wanted to quit, what kept you going?
Just like Ebber said, family is very important to me. I'm close with my family, and that was one of the things. But another, I think, important thing is just trusting myself. I feel like if I knew I could overcome whatever obstacle came by, I was able to find people and resources that would help me get to the other side. And I think just having a little faith in yourself that, you'll get through it, I think goes a long way.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you all. Thank you for all your stories and sharing. So we're going to move on at this time to questions from everybody. We have lots of questions that have been coming in. These are great questions, and we'll be asking kind of to both panels as we go through this. And I have my counterpart Deborah Shepard on here as well. That's going to help me with some of these questions too. So if I miss any, Deborah, please chime in.
Okay.
One of the first ones here that we'll ask is, what is it like to be an engineer or work at aerospace or in the aerospace industry? It might be more to our industry panel a little bit there, but anybody feel free to chime in, but I'll kind of tee it over to some of them.
I'll take this one. I think it's pretty exciting. I think that's the word du jour for where we're at right now. I mean, it's still a job. It's called work for a reason. So every day is not exciting, but most of them are. Especially when you've been working so hard on a project, you've been really focused on a team effort, and finally you can see the fruits of your labor. Everybody's worked together, and you get to high five, fist bump, and declare success. That's just really great. There are some jobs that you can clock in and clock out, but being an engineer is kind of a 24/7 job. You don't turn that part of your creative part of your brain off. And I think it's really exciting to see the projects that a team of smart people focused going in the same direction can make. I think that's just exciting.
That's excellent. And we'll keep things moving along. I'll ask a couple. I've got another question, kind of going to how are aerospace simulations and video games similar? That's Dr. Smith, I'm going to ask you that question to see if you have any thoughts on that.
That's a great question. It's so interesting. So we actually use a lot of simulation to help us understand various parts of vehicles or hardware that we build. For example, a lot of the CAD modeling software, so the computer-aided design software is absolutely integral in understanding even distances between certain pieces of the hardware that need to maybe reach out and actuate, or reach out and actually touch something. So using those types of platforms are extremely important. We've also started to use a lot, really, virtual reality technology as well. So on lab, which I really miss. I haven't been on lab since we've been in this pandemic. Well, a lot, that is. And so we have virtual reality technology that we literally can hook up glasses and then project images of certain hardware, whether it's even a full up version of the Perseverance rover or other smaller pieces of hardware, to then see how these science instruments and all of that fit together for integration, right? So really, it's awesome to see that the technology of computer-aided design and virtual reality have really found their place. Now, also, it's so cool if I start to think about the virtual space out there for looking at planets or what have you, and we have that technology as well. We can recreate the Martian environment, and that's really, really, I just think special, because I think back now and even listening to the earlier sounds of this week, where we could hear Martian wind, and that's the first time that we could ever do that. Now you pair that then with some of the virtual reality technology, along with a few other things, and you can really recreate an environment that's out of this world. So it's truly special, and I love it.
I like that. I agree with video games and simulations having some similarity. I know my early days as a satellite operator, we used to joke that it was like operating a video game. Now it was more like an Atari for those of us old enough to remember those, versus these advanced gaming systems we have now in 3D technology, but it was there. So a follow-on question to this, and I want to ask to the group. I want to ask the industry panel, probably Ms. Palmer on this, and then the career panel. But what should I study in school to help learn to code? Ms. Palmer, I'm aiming at you as our digital engineer expert, if you've got thoughts there.
Sure, yeah. If you want to learn how to code, computer science is probably where you want to go. I have a lot of friends who do computer science, and that's kind of what they do for a living now. They're coders. My friends who did computer engineering, they do coding. They don't do nearly as much as coding as a computer scientist. Computer scientist is pretty much doing coding all the time. And coding in lots of different things. You know, I have friends who are game developers who are coders. Software engineers also learn how to code. They're a little bit more diverse, but if all you really want to do is coding, I would suggest going into the computer science area.
Great. And I want to ask the college panel as well, your all's thoughts on that, on what you're living it right now.
Yeah, actually, I would like to chime in to what Nicole just mentioned as well.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, there are, especially at the school stage, if you want to learn to code, the basics of coding really rely on your ability to develop logic. So you should be capable of developing a sequence of logical steps that you can then use the syntax that the computer understands. I call it the language of the computers, that's all. So even before that there's two parts to this. So I think there are currently available online platforms like, one I can think of is the Scratch software. Like it's a one that is available to even school-going elementary kids can learn from that, or a grandma can learn from that. Anybody who's interested in programming but just wants to understand the basics of it can learn from that. So these days, programming has become a tool which not only coders use, but also everybody can use. So there are these animation-based approaches that you can use to learn programming. So, you can be, you can feel encouraged by those kinds of things. So I would definitely recommend those for you.
Thanks, Dr. V.
Mm-hmm.
And just from our industry or sorry, from our college panel, Ebber, do you have a thought there on?
Yeah, I actually do. So computer science was mentioned, but one of the things that I really love about engineering is just, oh my gosh, how diverse and intertwined the fields are. So me as an aerospace engineer, like I enjoy coding. I just wouldn't want to sit on a chair and code for hours. But even though I still do coding, I still have to take like 2 or 3 classes where I learn MATLAB, C++, Python. And if you think about on the long run where we're going, if you follow what Tesla is doing with the autonomous cars, well, that's all coding. And there's a segment of aerospace engineering, which is called, I think the concentration is autonomous vehicles. And that's all coding. Coding is all around us. Satellites, electrical engineers also have to take coding classes. I think really any engineering has to take some sort of course that relates to coding. So if you love coding, and maybe you also love biology, or you also love aerospace or electrical engineering, then engineering is just do it, and then you'll get a feel for it. But it's just, I love how diverse it is. So that's my input on that.
Very good. I'd add too, with our space systems, it's there's a lot of software. So having an understanding of coding, whether you're an expert at coding or not, just understanding it's really important to be able to manage that for these programs. I do have a Dr. V, while I can still see you on here, I had a question I wanted to aim at you off of one of the questions from the attendees, is what fields of science are most in need of women? And just I thought of you with your background working there at UCLA and seeing that directly.
I would say every field. There's no field in science that does not require women. I mean, we are not a category that don't belong in a certain place. So, so it's just, historically, yes, women are underrepresented in these fields, but that doesn't have to stay the same. Colleges accept women just as well as men. And when we get recruited as academic faculty members, there are policies and procedures in place which require us to treat equality amongst gender and all kinds of diverse factors that could define who is going to come up there. So there is really nothing stopping women particularly to come into engineering, I wouldn't think.
Great. I think I'm not surprised at that answer. That is a good answer. I do want to, Deborah, if you don't mind chiming in, because I know you're getting a lot of questions as well that I'm not seeing on here. So I want to make sure we capture some of those too.
Great. Yeah, we have a number of questions from Jordan Harvey, and this is kind of a general question. It says, this is kind of interesting in terms of diversity. There's such a disparity in the amount of people of color, but especially Black women in the field of engineering. A lot of universities are out of reach for the students in the middle, those who are not first generation, not at the top of their class, not affluent, and those who are not deeply impoverished. What avenues can these young women take when they can't actually afford the high tuition at the top engineering schools? And how will the gaps ever really be closed? The big one.
So this is really a structural, fundamental kind of question. But, I really want to say, if you were to poll all of us, I think we would all be different kinds of engineers. And with this panel that these 2 panels that we've got, we all came from different universities and different schools. And not all of us are from Ivy League schools, state schools, community colleges, state schools, Ivy League schools. All of these schools serve the needs of a space, be it a community or a state or the nation and the world. So there is room for everyone. Engineers, there is so much combination of engineering. There's electrical engineering, there's mechanical engineering, but there's also biomedical engineering, there's chemistry engineering, there's astronauts who are engineers and pilots. Nobody has to be just an engineer. So I would say if you're feeling left out, you've got to get in the game. You need to figure out a way. You need to carve out a path with confidence. There is no shame in starting at community college, even if there is, you save a lot of money and then transferring to another school. There is no shame in starting at a state school and then getting your master's and your PhD at a higher level of degree. And you get to figure out if you truly love it. I know somebody who was set on becoming a lawyer. They took 1 year of law school and they changed to be a psychologist, and she's amazing. So, if you want it, you've got to go and get it. Nobody's going to hand you anything. So keep at it. Get your pen. Apply to scholarships. Tell people that's what you want. Make them hold you accountable, and then just go get it. You got to just keep on pushing. Aim for the stars, and even if you don't, you'll be floating in space like an astronaut.
Indeed. We have a couple related to females. Again, I'll combine these. One from Jada: as a female in the STEM field, did you ever feel that your experience was different from your male counterparts? And if so, how was it different? And then, being a woman, did you find there being a major toll on your career? Kind of the same thing, or has this gotten more diverse, more accepting of women? So if we go back to the prior, I think this all fits together. As a female in the STEM field, did you ever feel your experience was different from your male counterparts? If so, how? And if so, what did you do about it?
I can take that one. No one else wants to do it.
Okay.
So yes, it's different. I won't sit here and lie and tell you that it's not. Sexism is still a thing. It's not as bad as it used to be. I will say that. If I look back at 10 years ago, when I first started, or even when I was in college and high school, it's very different now. It's a lot more diverse, a lot more accepting, at least in the public service industry where I work, which is the government. I would say that I have found it to be very, very encouraging. I've had some really, really good teams. I've had bosses that have always encouraged me and wanted me to succeed. But that hasn't always been the case in other parts of my life. I had a physics professor tell me, I don't really think this is for you, just simply because he's like, I think you'd be better off doing something, something girls are better at, that type of thing. So I do think that as a woman, you have to work harder to be seen the same way as some of your male counterparts. And I still experience that sometimes today, but I think it's just made me stronger. It's made me bolder. It's made me want to succeed even more than I already did. I'm a very A-type personality, and I think nothing tastes better than success. So I wouldn't let it discourage you, but it does exist, and you will experience some differences here and there. I think you'll experience that with a lot of things, just being a woman. But I think that things are significantly better than they were, 15, 20 years ago.
Great. Do you want me to keep going, or are you going to ask it of anybody else?
Deborah, I'll have you keep going. I want to add up just to say one thing from what Nicole said there of that the words you mentioned about those who have helped inspire you and have encouraged you as well. And I want to just throw that out to everybody, and especially the adults that are all on here, to encourage the young women that you see, particularly the ones in school now. I have 2 daughters, so that's close to me as a father to want to see them succeed and give them that message of confirmation that science and math can still be for them. So I just want to throw that out there to encourage everybody. Just encourage anybody, but those young ladies as well.
Yeah, I want to chime in one more bit here. True that, I agree with some of the things that Nicole said. And yes, you will always find people who are going to put you down one way or another. One of the things that I think has helped me is to change my own perception of how someone else might view me. I want them to see me as who I want them to see me as, rather than what they make out of me. So I think it is also important for us to keep in mind that it takes time to build the kind of image that you want to give to people. So go through that process. Everybody has different kinds of struggle, and this could be one of our primary ways of struggling through establishing ourselves as capable individuals. When you talk to male colleagues, talk to them as though you are an important component of the team, right? Bring in the skill sets, bring in the intellect and the knowledge that you have, so that will start to mix in, and then they will start to see how important you are, how valuable you are in a team. So that's very important to feel too.
Great. Can I keep going?
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah,
this is a combination between Jada and a couple of others, I think from Andres, and they wanted to know a little bit more about being a freshman. So I think it was initially meant for Ashley, but I think it's to be an open question, especially for Ebber and Ashley. As a first generation college student studying a career as rigorous as whether it be astrophysics or aerospace engineering, how did you feel during your freshman year of college? Did you feel lost? And if so, how did you navigate it? And going back to that, Jada and a few of those that are from Hawthorne High School mentioned the engineering academies at their schools, and if any of them had such an opportunity in their high schools as engineering academies.
Yeah, so I can go first, or Ashley, do you want to go first? Because I saw you unmute yourself.
Oh, you can go for it.
All right. So I guess we can go sort of like starting with like high school programs. My high school didn't have any programs or academies or any engineering things like that until I actually had to do outreach myself and say, I know I'm interested in engineering, but my school doesn't have it. So I put myself out there and actually got an internship like during high school, doing PVC wheelchairs for Moving Mavericks, which is wheelchair basketball at the University Arlington. It was a university in Arlington, and as well as other projects. But that was just because not offered in my school. I just went to do the outreach myself. Mm-hmm. And then my first year, I remember that so well. First, because I felt really lost. And I felt really alone. I'm not going to downplay that because at least here in Arizona, I'm coming from Texas, and the honors college here that I go to, because there's of course the main college and then there's the honors college. Nobody spoke Spanish, so nobody spoke my language and my native language, and nobody who I could relate to. So I felt really alone, and everybody seemed so well. Like they were not struggling in chemistry. They were not struggling in anything. And I was like, well, who helps you with your 3-dimensional calculus? And it's like, well, it's my dad. My dad helped me. And I'm like, well, I mean, must be nice. My parents didn't finish middle school, but it's, I guess I just got to work harder. And so I felt really lonely, and that's the truth. But what actually, just as a piece of advice, what helped me is that I got involved in so many clubs, and colleges have a lot of clubs, whether you're a Latino, whether you're Native American, whether you're a person of color, whatever you are, whatever you think you belong, there's something out there for you. And so I ended up joining them. I expanded my network, a huge network, and now I'm a leader within these communities. And that's what helped me feel less lonely, and then help also inspire others that are in my shoes or have it worse. So.
Yeah.
Ashley, you want to add?
Yeah, of course. So I actually was a part of the engineering program at Hawthorne High. It was an amazing program, and it helped me experience so many different facets of engineering, and also solidified my path of doing astrophysics. I realized that I just wanted to go straight for the science. And so here I am as a freshman last year, and it was really, really hard. I did feel lost because you take physics in college, and then it's like a little different than the physics you took in high school, because it's completely calculus based, and it's just really different. and I hadn't experienced something that was so hard before for me, and it was just really, really, really hard. But what really helped me was finding a support system and finding other students who also were having trouble, and then you can form study groups. And I will admit it is very hard right now, considering we're doing school from online and it's hard to meet people. But as a freshman, I was lucky enough to experience the first 2 quarters of my freshman year, and I just got to meet people, and we formed study groups, and it was the biggest help. It was the reason I was successful.
Let me see if I have any others.
Ebber, while you're gathering one more question, I'm going to ask one question I see here in the chat, just because I can't resist myself here. And there's a question: what do you guys believe is the best college or university to pursue engineering at? I'm going to give my answer: the Naval Academy. Can't help it. That's where I went to school. No, I say that jokingly because there are so many wonderful, great schools. But I do want to pose it out for just thoughts from the panels of where do you think is a good place to go get your engineering education?
Well, I mean, you know, there are, like you said, Lane, there are so many options. There is no dearth for options. And also some students, what they do when they apply to these schools is they look up the specific field of engineering if they're interested in, say, computer science or electrical engineering, if they want to do machine learning or, you know, algorithms and things like that. So depending on what it is that their interests are, there could be schools that have more emphasis in the coursework that they offer in those areas. So you can look them up that way. I don't know of a tool that can help you do that. That could be something that you should explore. But I think there are plenty of options in California. Cal States are pretty good, right? I mean, you have plenty of options here. UCs are amazing. So, you know, there is no dearth for options.
Yeah.
I'd also,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Deborah.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay, sure. No, I was just going to say, obviously, since I'm affiliated with Caltech, I got to throw that one out there. Absolutely. But I would certainly say that, you know, irrespective of really where you go, it's about those experiences and it's about those internships, I think. And so you really, those are really going to be the nuggets that let any employer know that you are serious about your craft, that you know what you're doing, that you're able to apply what you're learning in school to real applicable real world situations. And that's really what, you know, we're looking for. And so like we hire so many interns at JPL. We usually have about over 1,000 interns every year. These obviously last year was a little less because we're doing more virtual, but again, I would say across the board, there were students from the big major schools, MITs and all the Ivy Leagues or what have you. There were also students from community colleges, HBCUs, other MSIs and HSIs or what have you. So again, I focus more on getting the experience that's going to then prepare you for the next level of the adventure, whatever that will be. So I focus more on that, but yeah, you know, go Caltech.
Dr. Smith, just to add on to that, I want to add my 2 cents just real quick. Some of the best engineering training I got was actually not over the years, it was actually not in an academic course, but in training I was doing to do my job. And it's exactly that application you're talking about. The satellite operations training I went through and missile training, things like that was some of the best engineering training I ever received. So don't discount those other outside of the box training experiences you may have out there. I'd offer too, there's a lot of great programs in robotics going on right now that are doing great engineering training, not as a class, but as an activity. Deborah, back over to you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think this is an important one. Could you talk about finances? Specifically, information about tuition reimbursement, but maybe going backwards, since I think many of our students on this call are in high school, talk about when and how and where to find scholarships. When do you do it? How do you do it? Where do you find them?
I'll start, and then perhaps I'm sure the college panel has a lot of input there, as they just went through a lot of this, right? In my opinion, certainly starting earlier is absolutely something you want to do. If you know that this is going to be an issue, there are a lot of scholarship programs that even now, because of the situation that we're in nationally, have even adjusted their criteria for acceptance. So you don't necessarily have to be a senior. You may not have to have certain test scores, which is also pretty neat these days. So I would say start early, certainly in your senior year. Start working on those essays that may be required. Get multiple eyes looking at these essays as well. Don't just take it off yourself, submitting it, shop it around. Make sure a lot of people have read and offered some degree of input. As far as looking at college reimbursement, tuition, obviously there's lots of jobs and industry that offer that. Certainly at JPL, we have a tuition reimbursement program as well. We certainly like to invest in our engineers and our scientists because we want to keep them around because these missions last a very long time. And so we want to make an investment in folks' success as well. So again, I'd say start as early as possible, but there's lots of online resources to check out where you can literally see a slew of resources depending on background. I think this is also very important as well. So there's lots of scholarship programs out there for minority students. And for a lot of different nationalities and different places of where everyone fits as well. I think that's awesome. So please take advantage of everything. There's so many dollars that go to waste because folks don't apply for them. I will say that, whether they're government scholarships, private, public, what have you, apply for as many as possible. I think when I did this years and years and years ago, I actually wound up with a full ride, but I wound up with enough other external scholarships that I was able to have some pocket money for other things that were very important as well in school. So keep that in mind too.
I'd also like to weigh in here. I have to agree with Dr. Smith. Please start early. I know most scholarships are for seniors, but there are tons for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors out there as well. I guess my best piece of advice would be to look for local scholarships. Local scholarships are great. They're there, and you can usually find information about local scholarships at your college and career center. That's where I had my most success. I'm very, very lucky to have had all the help that I got with college, or else it would be kind of hard. But yeah, just start early, and once you have your essays, it's easier to revamp those for other scholarship essays. And if you try, I definitely believe you'll get something.
Yeah, certainly your school.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, Manzar, you're good. You go ahead.
Okay. Just to add on to that, I would say definitely, just like Dr. Alvin said, and Elena, start early, and also reach out to your guidance counselors and teachers, because they normally have a running list of all scholarships that universities around the area have. So that's a good resource. And also, I'm not sure how much everyone's aware, but when you apply to FAFSA, that's not just for student loans. It also allows you to select grants, which is money you don't have to pay back. So I know some people are always worried about applying for FAFSA because they automatically think it's student loans, and it isn't. It's also eligible for grants. So almost you can, if you're eligible for it, you can be guaranteed grants to help you out as well. And then just as you're continuing on, just like Dr. Smith said, most companies do offer, tuition assistance, as if you want to continue pursuing like a graduate degree or even a PhD. And even sometimes if you're helping out with an internship and you're working part-time, they'll support you through that as well.
Excellent advice. And there's a few websites that have been put into the chat as well. So check that out if you're not looking at the chat right now. Do look there. There's some other good things to go look at. We're getting close to the end of our time, but before we wrap up, I have a question to each panelist, and it's going to be real easy because it's a one-word answer. So one-word answer. We're going to go around to every panelist on this one. So your question is, what one word describes how you feel about STEM? So we'll start with the industry panel, and Dr. Smith, one word.
There we go. I had to find my mute button. Exciting.
Great. Dr. V.
I'd say progress.
Ms. Palmer.
Say hope.
And Ms. Viscara.
Creativity.
Excellent. And our college panel, Ebber.
Innovación, I'll say it in Spanish because I know someone's going to take it in English. So innovación, innovation.
Love it. Ashley.
Everything.
And Manzar.
I would say opportunity.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you all for sharing. We have, I know, way more questions we had time to answer, but these are great, and really appreciate the panelists' time sharing these thoughts with us. You all are inspiring, and really appreciate your time and sharing everything and your thoughts. So as we finish up today's session, I do encourage you to check out aerospace.org/STEM and the STEMcoalition.org websites. We're going to be having listing some STEM events and programs on the STEM Coalition website. There's going to be some coming very soon that we'll get those out there. But check out the websites. We'll try and get information out to everybody of other events and programs that are coming up that you can participate in. And then we'd also ask to please take a brief moment and complete our brief survey. We're going to use that as we develop future events and make these events even better as we go forward. And again, it's a thank you to all the panelists and to our sponsors, the Aerospace Corporation and the STEM Coalition, and just a few shout outs without hopefully missing anybody, but especially Leanne McGinley and Deborah Shepard, who did huge lifting to put this together, and Lauren Gandara, Katie Flynn, Monica Maynard. We have a slew of folks who put this together and did a wonderful job. Appreciate all your all's work in doing this and making this happen. So with that, I do want to thank, go ahead.
One second, Lena, I'm looking, we just wanted to call the surveys in the attention. Nicole, Lauren put it in there. If you can click on that and complete it, it'll help us for future events. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. So the survey is on the chat. So if you don't take it, please take a moment and click on that. We do appreciate your feedback and all the questions. And again, a reminder, if you have a burning question we didn't answer, or you have another question that comes up, feel free to email STEMcoalition2018@gmail.com. You see it there on the screen, and we will get back to you. And I have email access to all the panelists and have contact with them. We'll ask them if you've got those burning questions still. But thank you everyone for attending today's event, and have a wonderful STEM day.
Thank you all.